Nigeria, October 1960. After a hard-earned independence, we rejoiced in the confidence of a great future. Free, free, free at last. We are free from the shackles of colonialism. We shall become equals among nations of the world. Our people shall become educated to the highest standards and be freed from the limitations of illiteracy. We shall build roads and bridges to link all corners of our country. We shall construct dams for our energy needs, hospitals too, to eradicate all curable diseases known to man, and keep our people in a state of permanent good health from the cradle to the grave. Our huge population and diversity shall be our strength, supplemented by our abundance of natural resources. Yes, our natural resources of abundant oil, natural gas, tin, copper, gold, iron ore, not to mention our rich vegetation. Yes, nothing on earth can stop us from giving ourselves and future generations all the best that life has to offer. If we so desire, we could clothe, house, and educate every single man, woman, and child in the entire African continent 10 times over. We have come to these logical conclusions because at last, our destiny is firmly in our own hands. That was the great hope, the only logical expectations. But today, after 5 decades, when I look at the sorry state of our country, I cannot help but wonder, how did it ever come to this? How did a potentially great people, rescued from the humiliating clutches of colonialism, be brought so low? How long must we remain blind? How long must we continue to travel down the wrong road of self-destruction? If only they could see, what will our founding fathers make of what we have done to ourselves? At one end of the country, a group of agitated and misguided fools in an unholy alliance with multinational oil explorers are literally burning down and polluting the environment with impunity. A trail of destruction and devastation that generations yet unborn will encounter. At the same time, from an opposite end of the country, another group yet, just as deluded, are on their march in their bid to drag the country back to the Stone Age. The Nigerian people are left to their own fates. Because on both fronts, the security services are underpaid, undertrained, ill-equipped, and above all, demoralized. The judicial arm of government is no better either. So it is to their perpetual shame and embarrassment that even when foreign judicial systems remind us of how things ought to be done and successfully persecute our crooked leaders, we return the favor by honoring and exalting these criminals disguised as our leaders. We name roads and bridges after them. On occasions, we even honor their wives for safely being wives. If Nnamdi Azikiwe, Tafawa Balewa, Obafemi Awolowo, or Ahmadu Bello could speak from the great beyond, astounded they would ask, how did it ever come to this? These true and committed leaders went all out and gave their all, that generations after them will never know the humiliation of colonization. They will never know the humiliation of dependency and marginalization. Their resolve was our self-dependency, restored dignity to be called equals amongst all nations of the world. These visionary leaders were committed to creating a great future, not for themselves alone, no, but for generations yet unborn. They were able to visualize a greater tomorrow for which they were prepared to fight. They were prepared to die. But how did such a noble vision become derailed in such a short space of time? How long must we continue to travel down the wrong road of self-destruction? Blinded to these realities, the self-deceiving economists and statisticians continue to tell us that we are living in a growing and progressive economy. But they never tell us growth relative to what? Over 5 decades after independence, the majority of our farmers are still compelled to farm the land in similar ways man did in the days of Adam and Eve. Generations past complained about bad roads, lack of clean water, inadequate education. Decades later, the cries still continues. The majority are made to provide their own energy. Yet, the man says, I better pass my neighbor. Education is no better. Our pioneer universities of ABU, UNN, OAU, University of Lagos, amongst others, once academic leading lights of Africa, have all deteriorated into nothing but glorified secondary schools. Today, the few half-decent places of higher learning have become the private properties and businesses of our ex-leaders. Who would have thought? How did it ever come to this? Even the early missionaries would weep and lament because the church leaders that came after them in the work of God have also joined the bandwagon. I sometimes wonder if these new universities, as well as the old ones, have history departments. Because we have become a people that do not know their own history, do not know their heritage. A nation where the young and future generations have neither pride nor interest in their own country. They too look around the sorry state of affairs and say to one another, there has got to be something better out there. So they are eager, desperate even to flee in their numbers, even at the cost of tears, blood, and death. This is the sleepwalk of Nigeria, a condition we have inflicted upon ourselves, a tragedy we have walked into. But the question is, how long must we continue to sleep and slumber? For a potentially great people have lost their dignity and self-respect. Everything that once mattered is now out of balance, out of kilter. A dog-eat-dog generation. The nurses, the teachers, and their likes can no longer take pride in their once honorable professions because criminals masquerading as our leaders have long hijacked the prefix honorable. The security services are no better because even though we deceive ourselves, that we have one of the biggest navy, in fact, one of the biggest armed forces in all Africa. Simple-minded rogues from Europe and Asia, armed with nothing but binoculars, continue to penetrate and trespass our territorial waters with impunity, to steal and sail away with our God-given oil, whilst our admirals and generals turn aside and look the other way. Why do I recount these evident truths? It is because though our founding fathers fought tooth and nail to free us a long time ago from the humiliating shackles of colonialism, we are yet to free our own minds. Free our own minds that we may use our eyes to see and our ears to hear. For only then would we be truly free from these sorry states we have brought upon ourselves. For throughout the ages, since the beginning of time, it has always been the battle of the mind. Take away the shackles, take away the chains. But if the mind is enslaved, you will never value yourselves enough to demand the dignity that is rightly yours, the self-respect that is yours, let alone suffer yourselves to be led by criminals masquerading as your leaders. And it is so that shameless and unremorseful individuals that ought to be escorted in handcuffs to secure locations under lock and key are instead given the red carpet treatment, that it becomes near impossible to distinguish the sheep from the wolf, the dove from the vulture. It is true that the age of violent counter-reaction is long past. Electoral means is now the one and only decisive remedy to retake control. But at election time, if you continue to shy away from your civic responsibilities or sell your votes to satisfy today's hunger pains, tomorrow your children will be next.